Postgame here on HQ is presented by Trimfaya. Joe Musso pleased to be alongside the guys. Rand Carthon, Damien Harris, and the future Hall of Famer Patrick Peterson, here to break down what was pretty simple to see. I mean, these are men who have lived their lives in the game of football, and this was 101 stuff. Can you run the ball? Can you stop the run? Can you rush the passer? Can you protect the quarterback? The answer for New England was no to many of those things tonight. The pressure that Drake May saw, how indicative was it of what the Seattle group is all about?
I think it was everything. I mean, what we've come to know the Seattle Seahawks team as, the defense, this fierce group that just gets after the passer. They get after you, they pressure you until what do? You make a mistake. And what did Drake May do? I mean, he played as competitively as he could against this defense. Granted, we could pick apart. He could have moved in the pocket a little bit more. He could have, there were a couple of throws that he missed, right? But he was still out there battling. But what does Seattle do? They hit you, they run to you, they fly to you until eventually you make that crucial mistake. And that's what happened towards the end of the game. That was the backbreaker for New England, you know, giving up those interceptions toward the end. But again, this was a masterful performance by this defense in terms of stopping the run, getting pressure on the quarterback, being locked down in the secondary. I mean, what did New England's receivers do all game? And they have a lot of talent in that wide receiver room. I mean, it was all a credit to the Seattle defense. And Sam Darnold, I mean, it's a great story for him. I'm glad that he got himself a Super Bowl and righted his career. But, man, he has got to be so thankful for this defense because time in and time out, this is what they do to the other teams.
So many storylines to unpack, and we will do so here over the next hour. Rand, we talked about the left side of this protection plan for Drake May, but pressure came from everywhere. What did you see up front and their inability to sort it out?
Well, it starts with just the mentality, right? Imposing your will on another man and forcing them to tap out, and that's pretty much what this defensive front did all game. We came into the game, and Pete put it nicely about having two rookies on the left side of that offensive line, and they were going to now have to not only win their one-on-one battles, but be able to communicate and pass off those games. Well, Morgan Moses has really struggled throughout the playoffs. We hadn't talked about it enough, but Morgan Moses has struggled throughout the playoffs, and he continued to struggle. I like what Seattle was able to do. If you go back and you watch them all, you watch all the pressures, you watch where a lot of the sacks came from, when they wanted to run their pressure package and run games and put them in a bind, they came off the right side of the offensive line, which put Morgan Moses in a bind. And so you talk about what did this defense do? They just imposed their will.
Yeah.
That's what this game was about. Imposing your will on the man across from you and forcing them to tap out.
Pat, I want to recall a line that you often brought up this season. Say, Drake. You know, that's been your go-to this season. And as Damien put it, only so much could be asked of the quarterback under siege in this way. But the preparedness, or maybe the lack thereof early on in this game, how did you see it bear itself out over 60 minutes? The comfortability or lack thereof, how much of that was the moment and how much of that was the collapsing pocket?
Honestly, I believe, I won't necessarily say, it didn't look like the moment was too big for him, but it looked like the Seattle defensive line was too much for his offensive lineman that was protecting him for the most part. But Drake never seemed comfortable the entire game. He had happy feet the entire game, wasn't able to get his feet set. And when young quarterbacks get hit early and often, their eyes tend to come down. They don't see the whole field or go throughout their progressions as they should, and that was some of the things that came to a head in this ball game here. Wasn't able to be protected throughout this game, was never comfortable, and receivers was not able to create any separation throughout this entire game.
Were tested in a way in this one that they had not been tested throughout the season. As now is no time to look back as a recollection of the lack of teeth to the schedule. Instead, the prowess of this Seattle defense throughout this 60 minutes of football. It was coupled with a very, very effective rushing attack by the Seattle offense. You didn't have to do a whole lot knowing what that defense was going to be capable of, but how's 27 for 135 Ken Walk running to this moment, the biggest moment of his career, and we called it a feature back moment for him, Dame? The patience. You likened it to a legendary back that we've seen time and again before, but patience in this moment is something completely different.
Yeah, I mean, just to run the ball the way that he did in this type of moment, with that type of confidence, that type of poise in the backfield. I mean, people are going to look at me crazy. People going to think some type of way when I say this. He looked like Le'Veon Bell tonight. It looked like the game was moving so much slower for him than it was for everybody else. I mean, the creativity in the backfield. Like I alluded to earlier in the show, before the game, his ability to see a hole over here, and you think that's where he's going to hit, but next thing you know, he's on the other sideline because he's just so creative with how he ran the football. And in a game where Sam Darnold wasn't the best player on the field, having that run game to take some of the pressure off of him, take some of the pressure off of JSN because he didn't play that well either. I mean, Kenneth Walker was the heartbeat of the Seattle offense the entire game. So just to be able to run like that, have that type of confidence, I think he gained that confidence when Charbonnet went down.
You said the entire game, the entire playoff, he was averaging 120 yards, per game for the most part.
And I think that, again, whenever Charbonnet went down, they had mentioned it on the cast about how he took ownership of that and saying, listen, if it's going to be on me, I'm going to make something happen with it. And to your point, Pat, he's done that the entire playoff. So I think capping the Super Bowl off the way that they did, I mean, he would have loved to have had that long touchdown run stand. But holistically, the way that he performed tonight, that just caps off a magical playoff run for him.
Pat, pregame we were talking about which team could stay committed to their game plan long enough. How important was this run game in allowing that to be the reality for Seattle? They really never had to put Sam Darnold in that position of pressure that he was put in the NFC title game, to be able to run the ball so effectively and control the paces of this game. What did you see in that?
I mean, Damien hit it on it earlier about Sam Darnold really did not have to do much for the most part the latter part of the season and definitely throughout the playoff because the defense was putting his teams in short field. Kenneth Walker, we just got done talking about, averaging 120 yards per game. So he was pretty much at ease throughout this entire playoffs and throughout this Super Bowl because he didn't have to do much. He really wasn't called upon to make those key third down throws or, bring his team from behind. And when the quarterback's playing like that, stress-free, you're going to get those results that we saw here tonight.
And I will say this, Sam Darnold is not concerned with the why, just the what. And he is a Super Bowl champion on his 5th franchise in his 8th year in this league. It is storybook stuff. He didn't have to throw the game-winning touchdown down the field. But he was that calming force for this football team that looked calm, cool, and collected in every moment, including that NFC title game. How much was Darnold the pulse of the Seahawks?
I think 100%. He was that missing piece, which is why they went and paid to him the money that they did to bring him into this franchise. And we see that tonight with him winning his first Super Bowl championship. But you talk about, Dame talked about he didn't have to be the best player on the field. He was 19 of 38 on the day. I believe he threw for 202 yards on the day. So that's 50% completion percentage. He did what he needed to do in moments, right? Because there were a lot of passes that we were like, whoa, and we talked about that at halftime. But again, throughout the latter part of the game, you saw his escapability. We saw him pull the ball down, make a guy miss in space, and get a key first down. He played how I've said Drake May has played all season.
Yeah.
I don't care about the stats. I just want that dub. That's all I care about. So however that came, we saw Drake May in the AFC Championship game have more rushing yards than passing yards, whereas you saw Sam Darnold, he wasn't concerned about the completion percentage. I need to just make the right throws, live to see another day, and if I need to pull the ball down and run, I will do that as well. So he did whatever this team needed him to do tonight to win the football game.
And now, like when you finish med school and you insist to be called Dr. Rand Carthon, well, he is Super Bowl champion Sam Darnold, no
Put
matter
some
the means.
respect on my name.
Certainly so. Ring me as Sam Darnold gets it done. And this wasn't a limp there. This wasn't a find your way to wins. This was emphatic in the way they went about their business. 10 consecutive victories to end this season. Only the 4th team in NFL history to do that. They also collect 7 wins this year against teams with 12 or more wins in the regular season. This is domination, but in a different way, Dame. How do you define the dominance of this Seattle group?
You define it by the way that their defense plays, first of all, because that's the identity of this team. And they try to do that on offense with Kenneth Walker and the way that they run the ball. But the name of the game in Seattle is speed, physicality, and meeting force with force. They're not afraid of anybody. Nobody's going to walk into there and push that defense around. That's not going to happen for a long time. And then with the way that they run the football, again, whether it's physical or finesse, it keeps you out of long yardage situations on 3rd down. It keeps pressure off of Sam Darnold. And then it lets guys like Cooper Kupp, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, they just go out there and play ball. They just roll the ball out there and they just run routes. So this is the identity of this team. McDonald's, in his second year, he built the foundation last year, didn't necessarily get to the playoffs, but again, in year two, getting to the Super Bowl, building, that just shows you the type of impact McDonald is having in that locker room, the belief, the buy-in, and then obviously the physical, fast style of play. Like, this is going to be a team that we're going to talk about for a while now.
I'm glad you bring up the timeline there, because I want to go to our GM and talk about roster construction, because this was sort of zigging when others zagged. It's all about going to get the hot young offensive mind. Seattle gets a Shanahan stopper, a McVay stopper, if you will, in McDonald to get through that division, which they do, and now they're here. But the way that they've drafted and developed that talent over these 2 years to get from one of the worst defensive teams back to that, they call it the dark side, but Legion of Zoom is what I like. To get to that level of play in a 3-year span, what does that say about the belief in constructing the roster?
So, I mean, John Schneider is one of the longest tenured GMs in our league currently. I believe it's Mickey Loomis is number one, and then somewhere in there is John Schneider and Les Snead of the Los Angeles Rams. But what Schneider has been able to do, and if you go back and you just look at the way this roster is constructed, he made similar moves in building this team, the dark side, as he did building the Legion of Boom, right? So you start with draft picks. They spend a lot of draft capital in the secondary, being able to draft those guys and develop the guys in the secondary. And then you look up front. The up front is a mixture of draft picks, trades, and free agent signings. You get Ernest Jones in a trade. You trade for Leonard Williams. You sign Owosu. You draft Derek Hall. You draft Byron Murphy. And it's a mixture, right? It's a mixture, and it's putting rookies and veterans together at all levels, and then just allowing the coaching staff to put their imprint on it and develop the talent.
John Schneider becomes the first general manager in NFL history to make multiple Super Bowls with completely different rosters. No pieces from that on this, and once again, a Super Bowl champion, the second time in franchise history. And here is the representation of that stat we uttered earlier. Wins against 12 or more win teams as their opposition, 7 times this season. Now, much of that a construct of playing your way through the NFC West, which was the toughest division in football this year, but man, oh man, the Seattle Seahawks leaving no doubt in Super Bowl 60. Back on HQ postgame presented by Trimfaya, where, man, to see your reflection in that 7 pounds of sterling silver, it's something special and something they'll never forget. The Seattle Seahawks, Super Bowl champions, closing out the season on a 10-game win streak. And it's our pleasure to take you back out to the site, Santa Clara, and standing by the 2-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and our senior NFL writer Pete Prisco with their thoughts from field level. And gentlemen, I just need a sense of the moment here. Anytime that confetti falls and we punctuate a season, Mac, it's always special. What does it feel like down there right now?
It's electrifying. Just seeing this process for the Seattle Seahawks from week 1 to currently being in this moment with a second-year head coach, a first-year quarterback in Sam Darnold. Look at some of the key additions they've made. It's been an outstanding development in the culture that they've created there. Remember, this is a team a year ago. They had DK Metcalf, they had Tyler Lockett, they had Geno Smith. Made some big, major moves to improve their roster spots, and then in moments where we felt like, what are they doing? They had a game plan in play, and they just started with their defense, running the football, and playing smart football. That was the catalyst for their success, Pete, in my opinion, Joe. When you look at the playoff run, how they ended the season, and how they got things rolling in the playoff, those key elements stood firm for them in their success.
It's an old tried and true formula. You go back years and years and years. If you can rush with 4 guys and then bring the occasional blitz, you are going to win a lot of football games in the National Football League. They sacked him 6 times. They actually had 7 because they had one that was called back by penalty. And one of those sacks came from a guy, Riley Mills. He didn't have a sack all year, and he bull rushed himself into the backfield and got a sack. They dominated this game because of their defensive front 7. And I tell you what, you look through the course of history, anybody who can rush 4 and get that kind of pressure, you're going to win a lot of football games.
Yeah, it makes for a muddy picture behind, and one that Drake May didn't even have the time to sort out in this Super Bowl 60. Pete, I don't make a habit of scrolling back through our text thread. It's just not good for either of us. But I did remember a moment in the middle of this season where you and I were exchanging about the play calling for Seattle. And Clint Kubiak calling the plays in a way that he wasn't confident in his quarterback's ability to win football games for him. But 10 consecutive wins to end this season. It was a total crescendo by this group. What does that say about the head coach and the entire coaching staff for Seattle?
Well, I think when we look back on that, there were a lot of reasons why he was calling the games like that. Remember, they had a lot of injuries on the offensive line. They weren't healthy. They had a rookie left guard. They had a first-time starting center. It took him a little while to gel a little bit, and I don't think he truly trusted them. As they got better, as he trusted them more, he started to call those plays. And I'll tell you what, throughout the postseason, he was outstanding calling plays. I mean, you saw the touchdown to Barner tonight. That was a great play call. And I think Clint Kubiak got that job because of the way he called plays in the second half of the season. And quite frankly, they didn't run the ball early in the season. They ran it in the second half of the season. They ran it throughout the playoffs, and they ran it tonight. And when you can do that, it makes it easy on the quarterback.
And also, too, to your point, the offensive line finally got healthy. They were missing the best offensive lineman for quite a few ball games throughout the season in Cross. And when he got healthy, especially towards the playoff stretch, everything just started to gel. When I look at Sam Darnold, and I know we've been talking ad nauseum about do they trust Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold made the necessary plays. I say this all the time, Joe. Make routine plays happen routinely. And throughout this playoff stretch, he did that. Now, was he at his best today? No, he was not. But what he did not do was he didn't put the ball in harm's way. When you look at the last 4 ball games dating back to week 18, Seattle, offensively, 0 turnovers. The teams they faced off against combined for 8 turnovers. That's how you win football, especially in January going into February of football play. That's it. So I'm okay in what I saw from Sam Darnold. I know most casual football fans, they did not like this ball game.
But when you have a defense of that caliber, it makes it easy not to turn the ball over because like on 3rd and long, you can run the ball like they did and then punt them back.
Here we go.
And so I think it makes it easier.
Here comes the Sam Darnold hate.
It's not hating on him.
Here we go.
I think he's played very well throughout he played pretty well throughout the playoffs.
He did.
And he's good enough to win games with that defense. No question
He
about it.
will always have that NFC title game performance, one that got his team into this opportunity. But maybe we remember this group the way we remembered that previous Seattle group. Defense first and a run game to complement. Mac, I know it warms your heart because the ethos across the league has been get one of these boy genius head coaches, offensively sound, pair him with a young talented quarterback, and try and go take this thing the distance. This is a defense first outfit. What does that mean in terms of the way we look at not just this group, but at trying to get a different group to this level as well?
I think this should be a telling sign to owners in the National Football League. You don't always have to cater to an offensive-minded guy when you need a head coach. I understand that's a new fad in the National Football League. That's been the trend for quite some time. If I need a head coach, I got to go get an offensive quote-unquote guru. No, you can go get defensive-minded guys too, because the most important thing is, are they leaders of men? Will this locker room respect them? When Mike McDonald came into this fold a year ago, yes, they didn't make the playoffs, but he instantly changed the culture for their organization. And what he did was he continued to build upon that said culture. And also to this, they drafted well. When you draft well and you bring in key free agents here and there, no question, you will find a way to execute and do so at a high level. So Mike McDonald has been phenomenal. And I can tell you this much, the Baltimore Ravens show missed him when he left because their defense wasn't the same when you talk about the executing and playing to a physical mindset. They remind me of the Houston Texans of the NFC and their style of play and how physical and how they hunt.
You know, you look at it, and they made some bad moves. The Jamal Adams trade was a horrible trade for them. But John Schneider did a great job of regrouping. And what he did is he regrouped, and he drafted well in the middle of that defensive line. They got Byron Murphy, who's outstanding. You go get Leonard Williams, he's now next to him. You go get DeMarcus Lawrence, and he's next to him. Look, the moral of the story is all those pretty guys on the outside, those guys like you who run in the secondary and everything, it's great to have them. But you know what wins in this league? What wins in this league is big guys, big guys, big guys who can get after the quarterback and protect the quarterback.
See, Joey, every now and then he like to throw a shot at me. We used to have a saying in Pittsburgh, give me little guys that hit like big guys and big guys that run like little guys. And they kind of have that going on in Seattle right now. When you talk about flying around like a bunch of ants on some street crumbs, it's they swarm to the football relentlessly.
And they
tackle well. Devon Witherspoon is one of the best tackling corners in the National Football League. You look at Nick Eman-Warrior, like I said, he's the Kyle Hamilton for their defense and how they utilize him with his versatility. They got something brewing right now in Seattle, and I ain't talking about a hot cup of coffee. they got something brewing, especially when it comes to the football mindset in terms of moving forward with the future.
There is a big guy, little guy punchline to be made here, but I'm too much of a professional. So let's close the book on Seattle. The celebration often speaks for itself. On the other side of this one, it's a what-if moment for the New England Patriots and this opportunity that escapes them. Pete, the nature of this loss, does it worry you at all moving forward with this group in New England?
Well, in terms of, Pete didn't hear you, Joe, so I'll answer the question and Pete followed me. Am I worried about New England moving forward? I am. Because the thing about this Patriots team, in postseason play, they benefited from offenses with deficiencies. Their offensive line was horrendous, but the offenses they played against were worse. And also, too, Joe, you remember what their Achilles heel was for their team offensively in 2024? The inability to protect their quarterback. Those woes surface in playoff football, right? Coming into this matchup, they allowed 15 sacks in 3 games. And then you add another 6. That's 21 sacks in 4 playoff games, including the Super Bowl, Joe. You cannot win like that. And guess what happened? Drake May looked like a pedestrian in the pocket. So I'm a bit concerned because they invested a first-rounder in Will Campbell. I mean, we had the conversation watching the game today, Joe. Maybe they need to kick Will Campbell inside.
Not maybe.
Yeah.
Not maybe.
But if you do that, now you have a void at the left tackle spot. So I'm a bit concerned because what we saw was a Pandora's box open against them in the postseason, and the same thing that caused them issues in playoff play, other teams will utilize and try to do the same thing next season.
This team is a testament to the coach because they aren't that good. And I said it on Monday. I went through and ranked the entire rosters, both teams, and I looked at their roster and I'm like, where are the stars on this team? Look, Drake May is moving to being a star, no question about it. He hadn't played like a star in the postseason. He was bad in the postseason. A lot of it had to do with the offensive line, but a lot of it had to do with his eye level came down. He held the football. Tonight he held the football a couple different times. So there's concern there. And I think you look at their defense. Yeah, they're good on the interior when Barmore and Williams are playing, but where are the great edge rushers? They don't have anybody. They have great secondary players. I do think they do have that. But the bottom line is they need to get edge guys who can rush the passer. They need to get some speed. Where was Diggs until the end of the game? He was a no-show. He's your number 1 wide receiver. That can't happen. So do they have problems going forward? No question about it.
You know, it's not a season complete until Bryant, McFadden, and Pete Prisco get down to field level at a Super Bowl, fellas. We appreciate the hard work all week long, and it is now officially a goodbye and a season complete. Thank you, guys. All right, our team on the ground putting the finishing touches on Super Bowl 60 in Santa Clara. Bryant McFadden and Pete Prisco offering thoughts on both sides. And, you know, we came into this matchup talking about eerie similarities between the start of the Patriots' dynastic run and maybe what this team was poised to do. Well, how about the parallels between these two Hawks defenses? Points per game in the teens, yards per game under 300, dominance in the form of defense in Seattle.